To say A24 has developed a cult following is underselling their branding and film curation. Fans clamor that A24 single-handedly started a new wave of elevated horror films and that they can do no wrong. Horror has long dealt with taboo as well as common fears that unite us all. Horror has been tackling serious themes and delivering powerful pictures that move us since the inception of cinema. So why then are horror films of A24 held on such a high pedestal? A distributor turned production company, A24 skyrocketed to cult status by curating a line of films that shirk the meager jump scares and cheap thrills of rival studios like Blumhouse. They are a studio that only puts out the best and have paved a way to a new future for the horror genre. Or are they? They can't all be masterpieces, right? They can't all be bangers from Ari Aster or Robert Eggers. Some of them have to be just as bad, if not worse, than some of the rival films at the box office. A24 is just really good at burying them. So get your adult diapers ready and come join me today as we look at the rotten, elevated horror films of A24.
I'm a racist baby. Go, go, gaga, gaga, dada, 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 mama, gaga, mama.
First up is the most recent A24 horror flop, 2024's Front Room, which sits at a 42 on Rotten Tomatoes and a 49 on Metacritic. Belinda is an adjunct professor in cultural and women's studies who has two goals: to become a full-time professor with tenure,
but I'm not an adjunct anymore. Oh, you're such a hard worker.
And to have a child. So when her husband's estranged father passes away and her mysterious mother-in-law decides to move in,
I'm willing to give you all the money I got. All I ask in return is you take me home.
Belinda is suddenly forced into a power struggle that could determine the future of her unborn child. It's not a bad setup. The first act and advertising do a great job at teasing the idea that there is something more sinister at work. However, audiences didn't receive the type of horror they expected from this perplexing picture. Front Room is what gave me the idea for this video in the first place, and it led me down a rabbit hole to find all the stinkers that A24 has tried to bury from the public eye.
I am not crazy. They're trying to make me think I'm crazy.
Front Room is probably their most notable flop because it was not only a recent film, but it was also one that A24 put a decent amount of marketing behind.
She said that you hit her.
Yeah, this is not Cinderella, but she's wicked. I think people are gonna be shocked. Nothing compares to the Front Room, okay? This movie is crazy. Pray for me.
With the star power of 90s pop sensation Brandy and a script written and directed by the Eggers brothers, this one was gonna be a surefire hit. Wait, it's Max and Sam Eggers? Not Robert, the guy who did all the other mood piece horror movies? It looks like Max helped with The Lighthouse, so it can't be that bad, right? Oh no, there's a poop montage in this movie. It's pretty well known by now that this movie isn't just a stinker, but it's literally full of shit. The majority of the movie sees the mother-in-law, Solange, try to assert her ideals while permeating every element of Belinda's home. She does this by manipulating Belinda's husband and turning him against her.
What is happening?
What? No, I didn't do that.
Oh, and she uses weaponized incontinence. Yeah, she pisses and shits on herself in order to torture Belinda while eliciting sympathy from her son.
I just cleaned up so much shit while Solange just sat there smiling at me.
When I said these were stinkers, I meant literal stinkers.
Why are you clapping?
The horror in Front Room then becomes the horror of aging and losing the control over your faculties. This directly connects to the entire premise of Belinda losing control over her home, her husband, and maybe even her child. This could be a great concept. However, the execution really fails to lead to a satisfying or even remotely interesting third act. Instead, the film lingers for the majority of its runtime on the back and forth between Solange and Belinda, and this leads to the aforementioned poop montage.
I'd like some water before you go. Please?
In the end, Belinda is able to escape Solange's torture, but is haunted by the trauma she endured. This isn't introduced until the last 15 minutes of the movie, and is actually the primary premise of the short story that the script is based on. Susan Hill's short story originally focused on a Christian family inviting a cruel and evil woman named Solange into their home. Even after Solange's death, the family is haunted by her spirit as it threatens to take the child from Belinda. The film instead depicts Solange as an evangelical extremist who wants to erase any trace of Belinda's cultural heritage. She also enjoys taunting Belinda with her Daughters of the Confederacy certificate. The Eggers brothers have inverted the religious theming and started to focus on race tensions.
I don't know what makes you think.
Because you're a racist.
Look at me. Here I go, riding on my horse to burn a cross.
Hey, are you behaving that way, you grown-ass racist?
And probably because they're two white guys, they don't really have anything to say about it in the end. The fertility deity imagery is only in the film so that Belinda can be shocked when Solange gets rid of them during her grandmother home makeover. If the Eggers brothers have anything to say about cultural or age divisions, it's outlive them. That's it. Well, and we all shit. Solange never gets any redeeming factors, and Belinda doesn't seem to learn much from her encounter. Well, except that maybe she's willing to engage in some elder abuse.
She bit our baby.
Why can't I die? Why can't I die?
This isn't the fault of Brandy or Catherine Hunter, who both give it their all in their performances. It's the fault of an underbaked script. Max Eggers, the brother of the more notable Robert Eggers, helped pen both this and The Lighthouse, and I can't help but see the similarities between the two films. Both movies deal with a stranger coming into the home of someone who doesn't particularly want them there. This creates a tension that is only amplified by the massive age gap between the two. Solange wants to lay claim to Belinda's baby, and the young man from the lighthouse wishes to access the flame from the titular lighthouse. This leads the younger individual to a breaking point in order to free themselves from the older individual. Max tried to recreate his success with his brother, where the lighthouse succeeds with its multi-layered imagery and metaphor. Front Room just throws ideas at the wall to see what sticks. The end of The Lighthouse feels inevitable, whereas the ending of Front Room feels like an afterthought. They're also both strangely obsessed with fart jokes. The Eggers family sure loved their potty humor. A24 just decided to trust in the Eggers name and the decent cast to produce a successful film. It's a shame that it feels so hollow.
No regrets. No, I will have no regrets.
Before we move on to the next movie, let me drop my weekly hot take. Eggers' Nosferatu was just okay. It didn't really add anything that made it stand above previous adaptations of Dracula. Making the subtext blatant text didn't do it any favors either. It's probably Eggers' safest and least interesting film. Maybe he should have had Max come in and add some fart jokes.
Out with it, lad. bitches. Damn you for taking delicious pizza from the fine people of this town!
Holy. Excuse me, I'm a witch.
Get out of here, witch!
If you thought it couldn't get any worse, just wait until I tell you about 2018's Slice. While this one has the highest ratings at 52% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 62 on Metacritic, don't let the numbers fool you, this one might be the worst of the bunch. Slice is a horror comedy which should disqualify it from this video. I'm not covering Life After Beth or Y2K, both of which got big rotten scores. The strange thing about Slice though is how many decent actors they have in a stinker of a film that I hadn't heard of prior to making this video. Zazie Beetz of Atlanta, Joker and Deadpool 2 fame. Chris Parnell, who's been in just about every television comedy from 30 Rock to Rick and Morty.
Ladies! What? This? No. I was at a costume party earlier this evening, and the hostess's dog attacked me, so I had to stab it.
Paul Scheer from The League and just about every sitcom that's aired since the 2000s. Even a young Joe Carey is here, big hair and all. It's a pretty good cast for a comedic horror film, but this wasn't going to be just any movie. It was going to be the launching point for the acting career of Chance the Rapper.
I'm attractive. Very muscular.
Muscles for days, boss.
June 2015, A24 dropped an announcement on Instagram that Chance the Rapper would star in an upcoming murder mystery written and directed by his music video collaborator, Austin Vesely. The film was scheduled for a 2016 release, but 16 months came and went with nary a word. Halloween 2016, Chance dropped a 20-second teaser on his Twitter to much excitement from his fanbase. Another year passed and A24 dropped a 70-second trailer showcasing a large cast of characters and Chance in full biker attire. By this point, most had completely forgotten about the movie, but this full trailer must have meant that the movie was done, right? Not so much. Something was wrong with Slice, and A24 wanted to keep it under wraps. In September of 2018, they announced the movie would have a one-night limited theatrical release on September 17th and arrive on demand in Amazon Prime on September 18th.
Is this going to be something you want to do now? Go into more acting?
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. If you guys like this one, then I'll keep it going.
Last night was a one-time only release in theaters. Slice is now streaming on all platforms.
They were releasing the movie unceremoniously with little to no advertising to die. Despite Chance being a fairly big draw, A24 had no confidence in this movie whatsoever.
I will say it was kind of a struggle.
But it can't be that bad, right? Slice takes place in Kingfisher, a small town where ghosts, werewolves, and all manner of creepy crawlies are commonplace. The impetus for the plot is the murder of a pizza delivery guy, Sean, who has his throat slit while delivering a pizza to a ghost. This drives the town into a fervor, especially Zazie Beetz' character, Astrid, Sean's girlfriend who swears vengeance for her dead lover. How's she gonna do it? With the pizza delivery montage, I guess. This is the streamlined setup for Slice. I'm omitting the investigative reporter Sadie, played by Ray Gray, or her saucy co-worker from Stranger Things. Then there's the corrupt mayor, or the old cat lady protesters who want the pizza shop to be torn down because it just so happens to be located above the ruins of an insane asylum.
That is capitalism!
They're fighting for the rights of the forgotten ghosts, but not really, because they're actually a group of Karens plotting with the mayor in order to make money off of the disenfranchised. Oh, and there are these two cops who are on the case too. One of them is a racist against werewolves and the other's a bumbling idiot who gets stuck in a seatbelt at one point. Are we missing anyone? Any big starring roles we need to fill? Nope. Okay, let's keep going.
I'm sorry? Yeah!
A little over halfway into the movie, They show that Sean has been around the whole time as a ghost, just doing drugs in a back alley.
What are you doing with these creeps?
Mainline and dopey stuff.
Just in time for Astrid to get stabbed in the back.
Look out.
And also become a ghost.
Did I die? Ah, shit, that fucking sucks!
Then they reveal the killer with no actual buildup or character revelations whatsoever. It was the old lady protesters who were actually cultists / witches. Woo! They really just need to reveal this right now because we need to move on from pretending this is a murder mystery. Turns out the pizza place is on a hellmouth and the cat lady cult wants to access it to enslave the ghosts and cause the apocalypse. Oh, I know what I forgot. It was Chance the Rapper. Yeah, he's in this too.
I'm not a hero. I'm a fucking rascal.
He shows up about 30 minutes into the movie after they introduced everybody else and sort of becomes the main character after Astrid dies. I say sort of because Sadie, the reporter, is the only one who's actually trying to move the plot forward.
So what the hell am I here for?
The entire time you're wondering where Chance is going to show up, and then this movie just keeps going.
Like werewolves, they're like vicious. They eat people.
I cannot believe what I'm hearing. Astrid.
That is a stereotype, okay? So you gotta put $1 in the stereotype jar.
Then when he finally does show up, he leaves little to no impression besides his horribly stilted line delivery.
What kind of werewolf are you?
The kind of werewolf that wants to deliver quality Chinese food at affordable prices. That's quality Chinese food. Affordable prices.
It really feels like partway through they realized Chance couldn't act, so they tried their best to focus on anyone other than him and ended up making a convoluted mess of a movie.
Oh shit, god damn. What's wrong with you?
Calm down. I'm just trying out a new thing. You don't like it?
It looks and feels like a WB or CW teen show akin to Buffy or Riverdale. It really wants to be Buffy or Riverdale.
Well, if it's on this lot, then yeah, your pizza place is a gateway to hell.
I'd be surprised if this wasn't intended to be a television series instead of a movie. There are too many characters and plot lines for its short runtime. A24's started producing television shows with 2014's Playing House and eventually put out works like Euphoria and Beef. This would explain why the cast is primarily made up of television personalities. It was never meant to be a movie.
Slice is this interesting movie. It's kind of undescribable. It's like werewolves, ghosts in a pizza place. It should be an ABC show.
But speculation doesn't really matter in this case because what we got was an 83-minute movie, and it's an excruciatingly long 83 minutes.
Shit blood. Do you know what it's like to shit blood?
Well, I did have a fissure in my ass.
I found myself nodding off multiple times while trying to make it through Slice. It's a literal snooze fest. Slice ends in a CGI free-for-all that looks straight out of a Buffy filler episode. It's bad, like it really, really bad.
So you are real. Where you been? I've been dying to kill you.
I wish it was at least funny bad, but since they're trying to be funny, it just comes off as stilted, awkward, and a groan-worthy finale to a film that was excruciating to watch in the first place.
Yeah, Jackson, this is Sadie. I've got a scoop and I want a fucking promotion.
I really want to find something redeemable in Slice, but it's all rotten. A rancid pizza that A24 forgot in the fridge for 3 years that is utterly inedible.
We've got ourselves a brand new place, and this time it's not on the site of an illegal burial ground.
Yeah!
I need something to cleanse my palate after the last one. What's next on the menu? Oh great, it's Kevin Smith's 2014 body horror outing, Tusk, which sits at a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 55 on Metacritic. Woohoo!
You will fight me, Mr. Walrus, or you will die!
If Slice had too many characters, then I should be ecstatic to find out that Tusk primarily focuses on 2. Keyword is should.
The fuck are you talking about?
I remember watching Tusk when it came out, and honestly, I didn't hate it. I was entertained for the hour and a half that I watched it, and then it mostly disappeared from my mind entirely. This is not good foreshadowing. Tusk states that it's based on true events, which is really stretching it, because by true events, Kevin Smith means an episode of his podcast where he and his co-host joked about a newspaper ad offering to pay someone if they would come over to the patron's house and wear a walrus costume. Smith joked about this for over an hour, imagining what would happen if someone took up the offer.
The point in the podcast where you can hear my mind snap into like a ding, and I'm like, this movie needs to exist.
Turns out the ad was a joke by Chris Parkinson, who reached out to Smith and was able to get a co-producer credit on the movie. There's a lot more to the background and making of this one, but you can just read all that on Wikipedia if you want to. We're here to see where it fits into the A24 stinker scale. Justin Long finds a note on the wall of a bathroom bar advertising a room and board if the tenant simply helps around the house and listens to the stories of an old man. What ends up happening is closer to Human Centipede than it is anything else, and it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
That's a walrus dick?
Kevin Smith isn't subtle with his characterization or dialogue.
Plus, you haven't seen these other girls. I mean, don't shortchange him, okay? These fangirls, they may be pasty and a little chunky, but they're really sexual.
You bring shame to the Nazi party.
And it's really an acquired taste.
Hey there yourself, fellow facial hair aficionado.
What makes this movie a bit different is that you have his trademark crass humor juxtaposed against surreal body horror. Starring opposite Justin Long is Michael Parks, who starts with a subdued performance that grows throughout the film.
It would be right to admire the walrus. It is probably God's most noble creature.
He's really what gets you hooked for the first 15 minutes of the movie.
I saw my savior. I saw a walrus.
Because you want to know more about him. Justin Long, on the other hand, is living in Kevin Smith's script for better or worse.
Chainsmoke. Hell with your children. She was the worst.
The character feels so much like a caricature of a horrible podcast host that you become keenly aware that he is acting.
The audience likes it real and raunchy, so I try to keep it real and raunchy. And real raunchy.
Someone paid him to show up to set and read the script aloud. Parks is his opposite in almost every way. His walrus-obsessed eccentric old man carries the film. Well, him in a gnarly walrus skin suit. He quotes Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner and Walrus and the Carpenter from a script that it's painfully lacking of subtlety, but somehow manages to pull it off. However, just as you're getting pulled into his story about being protected and loved by a walrus, Justin Long just keeps interjecting over and over, and you're like, okay, when's he gonna shut up?
Can I just tell you something? Hold on.
What?
And then his drugs kick in from the tea. At this point, you're fully rooting for Parks to ruin Long's life, and then you're pulled away to introduce the B plot. The movie makes pretty liberal use of flashbacks to explore Long's character, but instead of seeing the man he used to be, we get to hear about it from his girlfriend.
The Wallace I fell in love with would not do that. I miss old Wallace. I miss you. I miss the real you. Is he in there?
He used to be really kind and sweet, and we shouldn't hate him.
I miss the guy who told me he loved me the first time we had sex.
This is supposed to be enough to provide us with a reason to understand why she and Sora from Kingdom Hearts would go on a quest to save him. The issue is that we never see an endearing version of Long's character Wallace. We only get the douchebag. So when we finally find out Parks has cut off his leg, we don't really care.
I don't need both legs. What am I? I'm not running marathons.
Oh my god! There's no leg there.
After an hour of Justin Long getting turned into a walrus, Johnny Depp decides to show up as Detective Guy, a French-Canadian stereotype complete with little beret. We are now inundated with Depp monologues and even his own flashbacks, which are some of the most brain-rotting scenes in the entire movie.
Sûreté du Québec.
Oh, did you come here about this spider?
I completely forgot about this entire section of the movie, and it's clear why. It's bad.
What's a blue sky with fries?
Oh, that would be me.
Much worse than the mashup of Chasing Amy and Human Centipede we were watching. Now it's the Johnny Depp show, but not Ed Wood Depp. We're watching Wonka Depp.
Good morning, Starshine. The Earth says hello.
There are 15 minutes of uninterrupted Johnny Depp, just talking and jumping back and forth between the present and the past. It's painful to watch and completely unnecessary.
Wasn't that just magnificent?
Depp and company find their way to Long by questioning Kevin Smith and Johnny Depp's daughters, who get their Nepo Baby cameos, an eventual sequel in Yoga Hoosers, which I still refuse to watch, Joe. You can't get me to watch Yoga Hoosers. I'm not gonna do it. The film culminates in an epic battle between Parks and Long as they both don walrus suits, complete with Fleetwood Mac's Tusk playing in the background. Long gores his captor to death with his tusks, just as his loved ones burst into the room to save him.
Oh, my. Mr. Tusk.
The epilogue shows that a year later he's still in the walrus suit and just fully believes he's a walrus now. Smith tries to end on a serious note, but the absurdity of it all just makes it fall flat. The majority of the humor in Tusk does not work.
Could this just be for grins and giggles?
It wants to be a Kevin Smith stoner comedy, relying on Canadian stereotype jokes as well as grown-worthy man-child character antics.
You see that in America, you may be red, white, and blue. But in Canada, you're red, white, but never blue, eh?
We get it, Smith, you're a bullshit artist. The humor that does work is all centered around Parks and the walrus suit. It's all about the absurdity and the physicality of the scenes. One in which they swim together naked, and another in which they battle to the death. Both are just so camp that you can't help but release a little chuckle. A lot of this is due to Robert Kurtzman's amazing makeup and effect on the walrus suits. They're visceral enough to feel like they're straight from Leatherface's closet, but also palatable enough that you can look at them without feeling sick. So it doesn't work as a comedy, but what about horror? The suit itself is great, but what about the rest of the movie? It's pretty unremarkable. There is little to no tension throughout the film. The only scenes that could have been tense are all front-loaded and often interrupted by Justin Long's obnoxious interjections.
Let me out of this chair, you fucking psycho! Help! Somebody help!
Smith doesn't try to create any suspense or mood outside of a couple scenes where Parks and Long are eating at a dinner table or dumping exposition.
The itty bitty spider crawled up the water spout.
It's a shame because the premise and production value are here. However, it's clear Smith wants to make a comedy film first and a horror one second. He doesn't want to leave his comfort zone of over-the-shoulder camera shots, awkward nerd romance, and overindulgent celebrity cameos. Tusk could have been a great surreal body horror film with comedic elements. Instead, it's an unfunny comedy with hints of something more interesting.
I think that the real savage animals are the human beings.
Speaking of more interesting, next up we have the lowest rated and probably the most abstract film, 2017's Woodshock, which has a whopping 27 on Rotten Tomatoes and a 39 on Metacritic. Woodshock stars Kirsten Dunst as an extremely stoned woman who is grieving after assisting in her mother's exit from this mortal plane via a mysterious drug-laced joint. Woodshock was directed by the Malavi sisters, who are two well-known costume designers that have worked with everyone from Sofia Coppola to Darren Aronofsky. This is their first and only film which surprisingly has few compelling outfits and a lot of negligee for Kirsten Dunst to roll around in. She uses her mom's death drugs to lace the pot of an older regular at the dispensary and accidentally mixes some of it into the order for her boss's young relative Johnny. The older client can recognize something is wrong, but Johnny just smokes the whole bag and kicks the bucket.
I don't know what happened.
Dunst loses her job at the dispensary and is sent off the deep end, deciding to mix the drug with her own blunts to try and escape her bleak reality and maybe just life altogether. I imagine this movie would hit different if you watched it high. There's a lot of light play and superimposition that may allow you to resonate with the emotional roller coaster Dunst's character is feeling. But if you're sober while watching, it's just a bit like being the designated driver to a party where everyone keeps making progressively more baffling decisions. For her first trip on the Death Doobie, she just sort of flies through the woods. For her second trip, she takes a mean drag off the Death Doobie and starts making a half-assed fence in her underwear at 2:30 in the morning.
You think I did this?
We've all been there, girl. It later reads that she isn't trying to build a fence at all, but is trying to replant the trees that have been destroyed, to try and restore order to nature. Her high ass just doesn't realize sticking a wooden plank in the ground won't do that. For her third trip, she goes to the elderly man's house, who she tried to kill, and confesses that she mixed up the weed.
I killed Johnny. Instead of you.
What do you mean?
Only for her to realize the old guy has been dead since she broke into his house. Girl, you're a mess.
How high are you?
How are you?
No, I said, how high are you?
Hi, how are you?
Okay, I am going to have to conduct a pot sobriety test.
Oh man, I'm too high for that.
Blow into this?
Hey, is that a breathalyzer?
No.
Turns out it was her boss who helped her obtain the drugs to poison her mother.
We helped kill her! We killed her! Run!
And she blames him in her Death Doobie trance, smashing his face in with a steaming hot iron before wandering out into the woods to light up her last Death Doobie, ascending into the sky and becoming one with nature. There's quite a lot of imagery of the logging industry throughout, destroying ancient trees. I took this as the self-destructive nature of human beings ruining their planet for short-term gain that would only lead them down a path of self-harm, like the one Teresa is going through.
Do you ever regret it? Cutting everything down.
She talks about loving nature, flowers, and the environment before the incident with her mother, and now when she sees nature, she only seems to see death.
I used to love this flower.
It doesn't help that her spouse is one of the guys cutting down all the trees, and she's trapped herself in her mother's florally festooned little house. Her ultimate goal seems to be to return to nature, but the guilt she feels leads her to lashing out and harming others.
You make me sick.
Teresa, come here. Teresa, come here.
Get out!
Come on.
Get out of here! I don't want to hurt you.
It's a bleak movie. It might act as a cathartic release for individuals dealing with grief or similar issues, but other than that, it's mostly just watching Kirsten Dunst depressed and high, ruining her life. Many reviews and impressions seem to think it's an anti-marijuana movie like Reefer Madness, since they correlate the horrible action of Dunst's character to a lot of the pot imagery, but I don't think that's the case. It's a film that glorifies images of nature and displays the destruction of trees on par with the final scene of violence. If anything, it's the combination of whatever man-made poison Teresa got from her boss mixed with a natural drug, which gave way to the chaos and destruction. This idea is amplified by the logging imagery throughout, as man comes through with his tools to enhance the world, to make it better for humanity, and only ends up leaving death and destruction in his wake. I don't think it was a particularly good movie, but I appreciate what it wanted to be. It clearly had ambition, and Dunst was putting in the work, conveying her performance through minimal dialogue. This is rated as the worst of the bunch, so I expected it to be a lot worse. It's a rough first film, but by no means a bad start. I'd really like to see what the Malavi sisters could do if they were given another chance.
I got you something.
Lucy.
It's really, really good. What? I can't bring my husband lunch?
You just brought me lunch.
Finally, we have the most controversial film in this video, 2021's False Positive, which has a 46 on Rotten Tomatoes and a 54 on Metacritic. A24 tried to bury this one by not even distributing it themselves. They gave it to Disney-owned Hulu to toss out into the content sea to drown. But if the reviews on Letterboxd are anything to go by, this one is downright traumatizing to anyone who has gone through IVF or parenthood. Maybe traumatizing isn't the right word. Offensive? Disgusting? Abhorrent? Many reviewers claim it's the worst film that they've ever seen, which seems like a bit of hyperbole, but this is a YouTube video, so it's all hyperbole. Let's dig into this stinker ourselves and find out where the smell is coming from. False Positive opens with a bang. A shot of Ilana Glazer's character walking down the road covered in blood. It's a promise to the viewers that the movie's going to get bloody.
Oh my god, that's so scary.
Eventually. The next hour follows Lucy, a wife trying to get pregnant while also trying to get the big case at work. She and her husband, played by Justin Theroux, decide to go to a fertility specialist played by Pierce Brosnan. He is Dr. Hendel, the best in the city, and the only reason they can get an appointment is because the husband used to be his student. After the husband Adrian has a weird masturbation session to some rough play, they're able to successfully inseminate Lucy. Showing what he jerks off to is absolutely no way pertinent to the movie, and it never comes up again, so I hope you enjoyed that detail. With the help of the doctor, she quickly gets pregnant with not one, not two, but 3 babies.
This is powerful stuff.
The doctor recommends a reduction.
And by reduction, you mean an abortion?
Either the boys, because they share the same sac, or the girl.
And from here on, Lucy's mental state starts to degrade. The rest of the movie has Lucy progressively spiraling into insanity as the baby/babies grow inside her. She becomes convinced her husband is in cahoots with the doctor.
I want the girl.
I agree with Dr. Hindle. I think we should have the boys.
Which he clearly is.
Do you think she can hear us?
No. She's out cold.
But her delusions cause her to believe that they're meeting at a hotel to have a secret hookup. Oh no, not gay. She begins imagining she is talking to a midwife, but never actually sees her until the end of the movie when it's revealed she's actually fairly scientific and not really cultural.
What happened to your office? Wasn't it more culturally,
Nothing has changed. I am not your mystical negress, Lucy.
She tries to share her plight with other mothers.
Crazy. I'm seeing things.
Honey, me too. I'm having the wildest mommy brain lately.
But it turns out that one of them is spying on her for Dr. Hindle.
You were obsessing and you seemed really not well. I just thought that your husband should know.
Ooh, this is too much. It's so scary. I gotta sit down. If there's a pregnancy horror paranoid mother trope, it's in here, but none of them are going to be interesting. The husband watching weird abuse porn, him hooking up with Pierce Brosnan's doctor, those are sort of interesting. They're never talked about again. They don't matter. This movie really wants to take the concept of Rosemary's Baby and update it for a modern audience with a woman who will fight back. It focuses on a mother's agency during her pregnancy and the father trying to assert control over her body. It wants to draw attention to science versus nature in relation to pregnancy, genetic modification, and controlling the female body in order to produce the optimal offspring.
Sorry. I just don't want to make the wrong choice.
I will not let that happen.
The issue is that it doesn't actually follow through on any of these concepts. It jumps between ideas before devolving into a series of surreal scenes with little to no connection. It all culminates with her having twin boys instead of the girl she wanted. Turns out the girl was reduced against Lucy's will, surprising no one. She tries to confront Dr. Hindle, going behind a mysterious door that's been teased throughout the film, only to find that every patient in Dr. Hindle's facility was actually impregnated with his sperm.
I gave you the best genes there are. My own.
He's got like this god complex where he thinks he's perfect and every single creature he creates is also going to be perfect.
God doesn't make babies. I do.
But they gotta be boys, right? Yeah, they have to be boys.
These boys will spread the seed.
No girls allowed. She goes ballistic, attacking him and his nurse, resulting in one of the most insanely placed lines I've ever seen in a film.
I trained myself not to have a gag reflex.
The movie returns to the opening, but by this point it's gotten off the rails. We get a scene of her floating the babies out a window, and for a second it seems like she just threw those babies away. Just kidding, she just gives them to Justin Theroux before getting her aborted fetus to latch to her breast. Gotta breastfeed the aborted baby. Why am I doing this to myself? Why am I watching these movies? It's an insane ending that doesn't seem to build on any of the themes besides validating her paranoia. It's a movie with so much to say that inevitably says absolutely nothing. The one redeeming factor is the score, which does the majority of the heavy lifting, establishing all the tension in an otherwise bland set of scenes. It drifts between soothing synths, droning in the background that lull you into a sense of hypnosis, to a heavy bass and strings that build up tension.
Very beautiful.
A tension that will ultimately be left unfulfilled. The only monsters in this movie are men who want to control women's bodies, a concept that is and could be extremely terrifying, but it's undermined by its treatment of Lucy.
You raped me.
Oh, Lucy. There's no need for hysterics.
And the subject matter as a whole. There's a deep-throating joke during the climax of the movie.
I trained myself not to have a gag reflex.
They clearly weren't taking any of this seriously.
I think my concept of pregnancy when writing this film was more about the system around it, which is really scary. But the experience itself is so spiritual and beautiful and amazing, even though it's also grotesque and scary, but it's much more, has many more colors than I realized when writing it.
It wants to be A24's Rosemary's Baby. The issue is that it focuses way too much on mommy brain.
Mommy brain is a real thing.
I don't want you getting paranoid.
I'm having the wildest mommy brain lately.
Mommy brain is a real thing, Lucy.
I am not crazy. They're trying to make me think I'm crazy.
As a plot point to completely remove Glazer's grip on reality and her agency, therefore making her rebellion feel more like a textbook case of hysteria straight from 1890. Man, I really miss Broad City.
I am not a mom!
You know, that tramp was my first sexual crush. He was hot. He was like a spunky bad boy. You know who was mine? Stimpy.
Stimpy from Ren and Stimpy?
Yeah, I feel like he has a similar build to Lincoln.
I'm not too fond of dwelling on terrible films that I derive no enjoyment from. I love a good B-movie or camp classic, but when a movie is just boring or so mediocre that it becomes forgettable, it feels like a waste of time. Not only that, I also find it disheartening that so much effort went into something that was most likely ruined due to circumstances outside the artist's control. Who knows? In another time, under other circumstances, Slice could have been a well-made comedic horror noir, blurring genres and launching careers. Instead, it just became another shameful secret for A24 to sweep under the proverbial rug. None of the movies in this video were made with the intention of being bad. Well, maybe Tusk was. Kevin Smith actively trying to make a cult film is extremely on brand for him. Each of these movies has an earnest core where you can see the promising film that everyone aspired to make. If I had to recommend one of these movies, then it would ironically be the lowest rated, Woodshock. It's not an entertaining movie, but the visuals and atmosphere make it a decent mood piece that you can get lost in. It's also sort of funny that one of the major deaths comes from her just mixing her pot up. So what is the takeaway from watching a bunch of A24 flops? Besides the fact that they're really good at hiding them, it seems like A24 was greenlighting and distributing movies made with care and earnestness. These movies overall align with their body of work, they just all missed the mark. The cynic in me really wanted to find out that A24 just made a bunch of trash like Blumhouse, but that wasn't really the case. These are bad movies, but none of them were made solely to make a profit. Maybe one day the Eggers brothers will get another chance to make a fart-focused feature, or the Malavi sisters will get to try their hand at directing a better script. Let's all just agree that Kevin Smith has had enough chances, he can stop now. Thanks for watching, I hope you never have to watch these movies. Go watch a good A24 horror movie. Climax was pretty good. Go watch Climax, it has dancing French people in it. Nothing else happens in the movie, I swear, there are no horror scenes. If you enjoyed this video, then please share it around the slums of the internet. Comment below, do whatever you have to do. A giant thanks goes out to my executive producer, Blake Partridge, as well as my other patrons on patreon.com. Thanks to MoeChicken for doing all the art. I'm gonna go now. Bye-bye.
I just cleaned up so much shit while Solange just sat there smiling at me.
Impossible, impossible, impossible.